In the second part of the Lethal Storm beat recreation tutorial, we will add a kick and rumble sounds to the beat. And believe me when I say there are quite a lot of things to do to get such sound done. Making a Klangkuenstler style rumble and adding on top of that a reverb rumble is just a part of the process. The whole beat recreation project can be downloaded by signing up on my Patreon page. And if you want to get your hands on more hard/industrial techno sounds or serum presets, you should check out my upcoming sample and preset pack. Inspired mainly by artists like KRTM, Rajski or Ayakana, it will have everything you need to level up your hard techno productions. Sign up to my waiting list, download a demo version of the pack and get a discount to buy the full product once it's released. I will create the whole kick and bass pattern in a following way. In the beginning of each beat, I'm playing a layered main kick sound. For sure I need here something like a distorted early hardcore kick played over a second deep kick sound. A sidechained reverb rumble follows the main kick sound. Because of that sidechain compression, volume automation can be used too. The main kick is separated from the reverb. On top of the reverb though, we will play a rumble kick sound that will give a Klangkuenstler style rhythm. The last kick drum from that pattern will be wide in the stereo field to make the whole bassline less solid and more all over the place. These rumble kick drums will be separated from the reverb with high and low pass filters. Everything will be later processed together with both parallel processing and multiband compression. Let's start with a main kick sound. The first sample I will add is a kick that has deep round low end and not too much mid frequencies and punch. So acoustic like kicks or kicks that are too punchy or too short will be a wrong choice. The sample I have picked sounds like this. And if I want to adjust it more, I can make the kick sound even softer by adding just a few milliseconds of an attack with a fade-in knob. I can also pitch down the kick to make it sound deeper. Out of this kick sample, I will create a first kick layer that is our mentioned early hardcore-like kick sound. So there is a need to apply a parallel processing where the same sound is mangled in two different ways. The crunch chain is where the early hardcore kick will be made. The most important effect in that chain will be the saturator that is alone enough for distortion. For best results, we will drive this kick hard by turning up the drive knob. The sound already reminds a bit of what we can hear in the original track. To fine-tune that distortion, I can pick a different wave shape, a curve, and use the bottom section that is activated with the color switch. The bass knob enhances the saturation for very low frequencies. When we turn that knob up, it's almost as if we'd use an equalizer before saturator to boost the low frequencies. That makes the distortion more aggressive. The remaining three knobs control the second filter that works like a bell filter that is also placed before saturator. The frequency knob picks a frequency range that is either boosted or cut with the depth knob. The width knob can make the filter wider, so it's as if we are lowering the Q parameter in an ordinary equalizer. Similarly as with the bass knob, affecting the frequency content before saturator shapes the saturation itself. I want to add this saturated kick to the main kick sound, so I need to cut out the low frequencies. Typically, a steep and aggressive high-pass filter works best for kick sounds layering, so I add such a filter and set it to around 200 Hz. Now I can add the main kick sound. Notice how I balanced this high-pass filter. If I set it lower, the kick becomes less punchy. On the other hand, if I set it higher, I will lose that warm sound. To make that kick sound even warmer, I can boost the frequencies from around 200 Hz area. In that kick, I can also hear some hollow sound. To get rid of that, I usually make a cut in the area between 300 and 600 Hz. If instead of a hollow sound you hear a hissing sound, make a cut at around 2 kHz. Naturally, the distorted kick sound is too loud in comparison with the main kick, so after the EQ8, I use utility to bring the volume down. I play two kick sounds together, and I want the kick to be softer. To be precise, I want to add a short fade-in to the distorted kick. I can't use the fade-in knob anymore, because that would affect the dry kick sound as well. So what to do now? In the crunch chain, the last thing I want to add is a tull filter to plugin. I set the right modulation rate and target, that is the volume, and I draw manually a short fade-in. The kick drum in the dry chain will be processed in a different way, but before that, let me advertise myself quickly and just say that if you wish to have other sound design or music production subjects explained in such an easy and practical way, consider going onto my website to learn more about my private music production lessons. Free consultations are available as well. I want that kick to sound warmer and I want to get rid of the high end, so after another volume adjustment, I'm loading a drum bass to saturate the kick. Let's turn up the drive a lot and pick a distortion style that gives the warmest sound. I can also emphasize mid-high frequencies here. The damp knob, when turned down, can make the kick sound darker. The transients influence the dynamics of the kick. It can remove or add more attack to the sound. The output of drum bass is usually much louder, so besides just tweaking the dry wet knob, I want to turn down the output as well to compare the kick with and without drum bass. The equalization comes after saturation. The most important is to cut the high frequencies with a low pass filter and to cut the lowest, almost inaudible frequencies with a steep high pass filter. The remaining adjustments are precise, and here I am removing some mud by cutting the 250 Hz area, enhancing the low end by boosting 90 Hz area, getting rid of a hollow sound, and making the kick a bit more clicky. If I want the main kick to sound fuller, I can try to layer it with another kick sound. I found an interesting sample with some noise on top. I already did the basic adjustments like pitching down the kick or shortening it. Notice I can also trim the beginning of the kick. It will not only make the kick itself softer, but changing the starting point of the sample will also change the way it interacts with our main kick sound. Similarly as with our distorted kick. I'm using a high pass filter and volume adjustment to blend this kick layer. The Klangkuenstler style rumble will be very easy to add. For that rumble, I have picked a kick sample with a right low end. If we look at the kick and bass pattern in the MIDI clip, we will see I'm playing the kick sample 2 times in a short time interval. So, to not make these 2 kicks overlap and to make sure the sample ends playing whenever the MIDI note ends, and simpler, I'm using the gate playback mode. Aside from that, I just pitched the kick down to make it fit with the main kick better. Since it has to be a rumble kick, after the simpler, I do have an equalizer where I use steep high and low pass filters to leave only narrow range of low frequencies playing. After such aggressive filtering, I might need to turn up the volume of the rumble kick. I mentioned earlier another kick sample that is played at the end of the pattern and is white in the stereo field. For that, another sample is loaded onto another pad in the drum rack. The kick drum sample is already trimmed, filtered like previously, and the volume is adjusted. The only extra thing I add is another utility where I use the width knob to increase the stereo width of the kick. Please note that for this width knob to work, a sample has to already have some stereo width to it. If it doesn't, a quick fix can be a spread control in the controls tab of the simpler. If this kick sample I loaded here would be a mono sound, the width adjustment wouldn't do anything. That kick sample ends the Klangkuenstler style rumble creation. The rest of the space will be filled with a sidechained reverb. On another drum rack pad, I load a previously used for Klangkuenstler rumble kick sample. To that kick sample, I immediately add a hybrid reverb. I turn off the internal equalizer and crank the dry wet to 100%. The hybrid reverb gives 2 different types of reverb. The algorithmical part of the reverb is controlled with blue parameters, and this kind of reverb is diffused a lot. On the contrary, a convolution reverb controlled with orange parameters can be very precise and rhythmic, which is perfect for reverb rumble. That's why I will change now the routing to make the hybrid reverb use only the convolution part of the reverb. The easiest way to adjust the rumble is to pick a different impulse response from which the rumble is made. Personally, I can recommend the chambers and large rooms category. Each impulse response can be controlled with these 3 controls. The attack and decay alter the amplitude envelope of an impulse response, and the size alters the size of a reverb, as in many other reverb plugins. At last, the reverb can be slightly integrated with the vintage control and with the stereo knob, we can make the reverb more narrow to make the rumble more centered and solid. Now I want to play the reverb only a single time and export it into a new file. The main reason for why I want an exported reverb in a drum rack is because I can set the playback mode to gate to again make sure the sounds don't overlap. Also, the rumble is going to sound in the exact same way each time I play it. The exported reverb has to be processed. I start out with a limiter that will make the reverb sound more flat. Reducing the dynamic range of the rumble will help making the beat more solid. So what did I do inside of a T16 Frontier? Is I brought down the threshold to set the amount of compression or limiting added. Then I tweaked the time-related release parameter. Usually shorter release makes the limiting more aggressive. In the end, I used both output and utility to compensate the difference in volume so we can compare the reverb with and without limiting. After the limiter, I'm using a low-pass filter to leave only lower frequencies. And if I find the rumble to be too deep, I can use an EQ8 to make a slide cut where the sub-frequencies are. A reverb rumble has to follow the main kick sound, so we want to make the reverb go quiet once the main kick plays. For that I'm using again a tull filter too. The modulation rate and target are the same as previously, so now instead of just making a short fade in, I drew a classic sidechain curve. In the end, the first utility adjusts the volume of the rumble in relation to all other kick and bass sounds. The second one makes the reverb wider thanks to the width knob. The last thing is the equalizer working in mid-side mode. What does it do is boosting the frequency area that gives a feeling of a bloated sound, but only on the part of the reverb that makes the sound wide. This will make the whole sound fuller. I wouldn't want to boost the same frequency area in the mid part of the sound, in the mono part of the sound, because in the mid part, the same frequency area is already taken by Klangkuenstler style rumble kick drums. Our kick and rumble sounds to become more interesting have to be distorted more. But if I just add some distortion in the group processing, I risk losing all the low end groove. It's time for some another parallel processing then. In the second chain, called distortion, I'm loading isotope trash too. If I want to just saturate or distort the kick, all I have to do is to use the trash module, find a good predefined wave shaper curve, and fine-tune the sound in the middle section. But I want also to get some interesting texture for the sound. That's why at first I will use the convolve module that, similarly as the hybrid reverb, utilizes impulse responses. The ones from the amps category simulate guitar amplifiers. That's where the texture comes from. If I want to enhance or amplify that sound, I change the trash to routing and place the trash module after the convolve one. Now I have numerous possibilities to shape the sound. After a few minutes of tweaking, I have ended up with such a sound. Such texture is later filtered. I need to get rid of low frequencies to maintain a clean mix, and I want to remove loads of mid and high frequencies, because this texture has only to make the kick and bass sound warmer. If more precise adjustments are needed, then it's time for EQ8. Here I am cutting the 200 Hz area to remove any unnecessary mud from the texture. And with 300 Hz boost, I am making up for the loss of warmth in the sound. What is left are the volume and stereo width adjustments. When I played the texture with the current kick and bass, we will notice the distorted texture is way too loud. There goes the first utility. The second utility is going to make the distorted texture more narrow. I do that to keep the sound more centered. At last, I am automating the volume of the texture further with dial filter too. Unlike in my previous examples where I was throwing a fade in, here I am making the second half of the texture much quieter, as if it was a fade out. That enhances the rhythm. In the end, it's time for group processing. Almost every time when kick and bass sounds are processed together, it pays off to use a multiband compressor. Do not make this video too long, I will just show what does each of these three compressors do, but if you would like to learn more on how to enhance your kick sounds with a multiband compressor, I do have a tutorial about that on my channel. So, the first compressor I use is the mid-frequencies compressor that makes the kick less punchy and more clicky. The bottom compressor flattens the low end to make it sound more coherent. The high-end compressor brings high frequencies up front and adds even more click to the kick drum. After the multiband compressor, the whole kick and bass sound got more glued, but we lost some of the punch and warmth from the main kick sound. To fix that, I could try to use an equalizer to boost the frequency area that is responsible for the kick drum's punch, that is somewhere around 150 Hz. While the main kick has gotten better, the rumble that comes after the kick sounds too bloated now. A solution would be to automate this equalization somehow. What do I have in this group is the same equalizer paired with a shaper. The shaper rhythmically turns on and off the equalizer, making it boost the 150 Hz area only when the main kick drum is playing. That makes the kick sound warmer and the rumble stays clean. At last, I am using a static equalizer after the multiband compressor. It is important to remove the lowest frequencies that are almost inaudible with a steep and aggressive high-pass filter. The remaining filters will make the kick and bass sound deeper, and we will remove some mud along the way. It means that we need a filter that boosts sub-frequencies. And a filter that cuts the mud at around 300 Hz. Additional cuts are done in the 120 Hz area as well.